Then we move on. So we'll start our demo about September 14th. That should take us roughly a month, and then we move into our excavation. There's a bit of work there. We're gonna have to do some, especially with our demolition, we'll have to do some soil abatement. So that's gonna take us a little bit of time and money as well. And then after we do our footings and set our first layer of foundations, we'll erect the tower crane, and that will begin February 19th, and it should last roughly a week.
One thing I would like to note on the tower crane erection, that duration is just for the erection of the tower crane. We are expecting to have to close 9th Avenue for roughly 2 days while we're erecting that tower crane, and we will be using off-duty police officers for traffic flagging during those times. Looking at our traffic control plan, we have trucks coming off of I-5. They'll hit Mercer Avenue. They'll be going west on Mercer until they hit 9th Avenue, where they'll proceed north until they hit Roy Street, where they can either go west on Roy Street or they can go north on 9th Avenue until they'll hit Aloha Street, where they'll proceed west to Dexter Avenue. The same route with, if you go on Roy Street, you'll go to Dexter Avenue, then proceed south on Dexter Avenue until you link back up with Mercer Street, where you can then return to I-5. I would like to note that during the demolition and excavation, in the cases that we have contaminated soils, those will be going to Yakima to the hazardous waste site there, or in the case where it's clean soil, it'll be going to the AAA rock quarry. Looking at our pedestrian control plan, we have opted to entirely reroute the pedestrians around the site instead of creating tunneling under that site on the sidewalk there. This just helps minimize the risk of any falling items and getting pedestrians hurt, as well as allowing us to use that and rent from the city that first lane of parking on the street. This gives us a little more room to move around on the site, as well as some storage areas for our sanitation cans and things like that, our truck wash stations, and it'll also be the locations where pump trucks can sit as well. So going into our phase 1 of construction, this is our demolition and excavation. You can see that our excavation site has 2 access stairs going down into it. These will be constructed on the northwest and southeast side of the excavation site. During phase 1, we will have a brake trailer or a dry shack there on the northeast side of the site. This will allow us to have some small tool storage and as a break area for people while we have that excavation open. And just to the south of that, you'll see our Santa cans placed there. We'll also be having wash stations in the same location. It's a little hard to see on this photo here. It's more clear in the RFP itself, the response to the RFP itself, but the green on the southeast corner there is where our tower crane base is going to be at. We were able to work well with the design team and come up with a design that had a building setback. Not only does that give you great views of South Lake Union, or the lake there, it allowed us to not have to button up the facade when we take down the crane. So this just eliminates a huge headache and costs involved with the actual construction of this building. So this will be placed in phase 1 when we pour our big mat slab down there on the bottom. You'll notice that our dump truck loading zone is along Roy Street there. That can also be moved to 9th Avenue if that makes things a little bit easier for everybody. And we'll have track out pads at either location to ensure that we're keeping the street clean.
So the next phase we're moving into, or I guess that is, so we move into our our form footing should begin February 5th, right after excavation. The tower concrete pump installation will begin March 12th, shortly afterwards. And that is just our installation date, so it's only going to last us roughly about 6 days. The substructure, we plan on being wrapped up and moving on to the substructure, or superstructure, excuse me, on April 5th of 2021.
Looking at our phase 2 logistics plan, you can see in the red the 2 pump truck zones. This is where we'll have pump trucks. We won't be utilizing that tower pump until we get above grade. So that'll be placed in the elevator shaft. These are where the pump trucks will sit. You can see that in the blue are concrete truck unloading zones. These are placed for ease of access to the site. The trucks can either pull onto Roy Street or 9th Avenue, back right up to that pump truck and unload their load there. Then they'll hit their track out pads to make sure we're not making the streets dirty again. And then they'll proceed on that traffic control route, either to off Roy Street to Dexter Ave or 9th Avenue to Aloha Street and then Dexter Avenue. You can see one thing to note that the Santa cans have got moved to the north of the site there, the northeast. And I'd like to note that along the inside of that site fence, we are going to have jersey barriers placed to eliminate the hazard of any traffic crashing into the site and injuring any of our workers, or especially during that excavation phase. There's horror stories of cars ending up 35 feet down in a hole, and that just creates a headache. So we're going to minimize that risk by putting jersey barriers, and those will remain through the duration of the project.
So moving on from substructure, we're going up. The superstructure should begin around April 6th, and then it should complete around April 28th. Our building enclosure will begin roughly September 6th and finish March 18th. All the while, we'll be working on our interiors, and it should wrap up around August 22nd of 2022.
A few things I'd like to note along this is that we are planning on everything vertical going in basically 3-floor increments. So we'll pour the first, do the structure of steel for the first 3 floors, then set the decks in succession going up and pour those as we go up. And then fireproofing will follow after that. We have decided to lay this out logistically, as the fireproofers will basically mobilize 3 times to the site, once for the first 3 floors and then following after that. Once that fireproofing is complete, the building enclosure, that's what kicks off that building enclosure date there. And that follows that fireproofing in just 3-floor increments, so we can keep trades from stacking on top of each other. Looking into our phase 3, this is our superstructure construction. I'd like to point out that that tower pump is placed there in the elevator shaft. We did this because we'll still have the tower crane on site, so it'll be easy to remove that tower pump once the building tops out and we're done pouring concrete. The tower crane will remain until we finish setting the exterior enclosure, the building facade there, and any air handler, the heavy air handler units. The crane that we chose was the Liebherr 316 EC-H, and this has plenty of capacity to lift any of the systems that we're planning on installing. Notice that we have a man lift on the northwest and northeast parts of the site. We decided to use 2 of these to keep materials and people flowing efficiently. We will be encouraging workers to take their breaks and lunches on the floors that they're working. This just allows those man lifts to remain open for material transport instead of being crowded during break times and things of the sort. I'd also like to note that during this superstructure phase of the project, before the building enclosure, well, during the building enclosure too, we'll have Santa cans on each level to increase worker productivity. And we'll also be requiring all trade partners to keep their tools and materials on carts. This just allows anyone else who needs to work in the area to move things easily and keeps that site clean and very easy to move around. Looking at that, the concrete truck unloading zone is placed right there next to the tower pump. The pump will be there in the alley as well. And there'll be a small material storage zone on the east side of the site on 9th Avenue. But we'll be relying mostly on just-in-time deliveries as a main source for getting that material. And in the case that we cannot, we will be storing them in the subgrade parking. Looking here at our quality assurance and quality control plan, mock-ups will be able to be done early on in the parking garage. We like to do those on site so that everyone, including the design team and you, the owner, have the ability to view them early on, and then we can just do them right there on site. And then in the case that it's a little bit more flushed out later on in the submittal review process, we can actually do those mock-ups in place. So if it goes as planned, they could hopefully stay there, and we wouldn't have to change anything. Along with that, our submittal review process, we have rented an office space in the building to the west of this site that will have space for all three project team associates. So the design team, you, the owner, will have a desk there as well. And then this construction team will be locating there to basically, that allows us to speed up the submittal review process and make sure everyone knows those hot submittals that need to get reviewed as soon as possible to keep the project flowing smoothly. With our quality assurance and control program, we'll be doing daily site walks and documenting all the work being put in place. So this will be mainly headed up by our project engineer. He will help with submittals, but that will mostly be taken on by Jesse. He's going to be the project manager on site full-time there. And then we can allow that project engineer to really document all that quality work being placed. We also have weekly quality control and assurance review meetings, making sure everything's being met, and that'll bring in the design team as well as the owner, making sure that everything's to the highest standards, that we can provide a building that lasts and is something that every member of the team can be proud of for years to come. Finally, with this quality control and assurance, we'll be doing pre-pour and pre-installation meetings so that we just, through the submittal and shop drawing process, we have an idea, but we like to get everyone in the same room at the same time, making sure we're all on the same page before this work is being put into place. Finally, on construction safety, one of the highest risk items is that tower crane. That's going to be a huge risk factor during this project. So we'll have a full-time lift director, making sure that everything is being done properly, rigging, signaling, and all the sorts. And we'll also be ensuring that there is no one underneath that crane or under the pick during lift times. There'll be a horn on the top of the crane that will be blown 3 times to signal a lift being moved, and everyone will be notified of this, and it'll be constantly reiterated in our weekly safety meetings. I did touch on that pedestrian reroute around the site, making sure that no pedestrians are impacted by this. I'd like to add that we'll be posting public construction notices weekly in all adjacent buildings, and this just allows us to notify the public of any loud activities that'll be taking place or any high risk activities, so they can plan their meetings around those activities. Our traffic control plan, I noted that and went over that pretty thoroughly, but I would like to also note that those off-duty police officers will be used in times that we have to do any extra lane closures. We are closing down the 1 lane of parking, but any traffic lanes that need to be closed down through the duration of the project at any point in time, we'll be using off-duty police officers to minimize that impact on the community. This project is big enough that we decided to have a full-time safety officer on this site. So he'll be going around and doing his job, making sure all trade partners as well as our employees are performing all work safely, and helps just really reiterate that we do care about the safety and that we will be on top of it through the duration of this project. Finally, I'd like to note here at Alliance Construction, we do have a gate-to-gate personal protective equipment policy. So that means that the second you step foot through that construction gate, you have all of your personal protective equipment on until the second you leave. There's no excuses during break times or really anything. There's no excuse to not have that equipment on. We want everyone to remain safe and return home to their families at the end of the day.
So to sum everything up, we really appreciate you guys taking the time out to check out our presentation. On behalf of Alliance Construction and JCStudios, we'd really like to thank you guys for listening to what we have to say. We think that this is a pretty bread and butter project for our team, not only us construction managers, but for the design team as well. We've worked together on, I believe, 4 projects now over the last few years. We've made a great team. We've worked on a lot of projects, very similar scope, very similar size of scope. I think $50 million range. We can definitely get it right around in that total budget area at the end of the day. All these processes that we've got in place are proven, the things that we've tried out and done ourselves. And so we'd like to give you guys the opportunity to test this out. Yeah, thanks.